On August 22, 2024, members of the Airline Pilots Association employed by Air Canada overwhelmingly voted in favor of job action. 98% of members voted in favor of potential job action starting on September 17, 2024, if a new contract isn't agreed on by then. In today's video, I'll explain how both parties got to this point, how the traveling public can navigate flying during a potential strike, and the point of views from both sides of the bargaining table. So, what happened? And what led up to all of this? Well, 10 years ago, ALPA and Air Canada ratified a new contract. And at this time, Air Canada were pursuing 10-year contracts with other unions that represented Air Canada employees. But I'll get into that in a bit. Just over a year ago, Air Canada used an early exit clause out of the contract they had with ALPA. Since then, they've been in negotiations and there is no conclusion in sight. On June 17th of this year, ALPA filed for federal conciliation to help mediate a new collective agreement, and on June 28th, a federal conciliator was appointed, so the feds have been involved in negotiations for quite some time now. Yet there's no conclusion, and a September 17th strike date still looms. So, what options does the traveling public have now? Well, to get the easiest one out of the way, seeking different travel options might be in the best interest of one wanting to do so. If a passenger has already booked a flight with Air Canada, and job action does take place, Air Canada still has to honor that ticket purchased. It might not be on the dates booked due to cancellations, but Air Canada is still obligated to get the passenger from point A to B. This is where travel insurance through a third-party insurance company or a credit card company comes in hand. If a passenger decides to cancel their trip during the job action for a refund, depending on what type of ticket they purchased, at that point, they're out of Air Canada's hair, and it's not their obligation to fly the passenger anymore until they decide on flying with them again. So, they should cancel their trip with the intentions of Air Canada getting them on time to their destination during a strike. I'm sorry, but that's just the cold hard truth. With that being said, generally job actions of this level tends not to last too long, as the company's bottom line is being impacted immensely. Take the recent strike with the maintenance workers for WestJet, for example. This didn't last too long either, but what differs between the situation then and the one now is that the maintenance workers had an illegal strike, whereas Air Canada pilots would be in a legal position to strike after September 17th. During the WestJet maintenance worker strike, the federal government ordered AMFA, the union representing WestJet maintenance engineers, to do binding arbitration, in which they did not and continued to strike. This led to WestJet caving in with the demands of AMFA, and a new collective agreement was signed. What differs here between ALPA representing Air Canada pilots is the feds are already involved in the mediation. Efforts have been made by ALPA to come up with a new collective agreement between the union and Air Canada. So, if the agreement can't be reached by September 17th, then ALPA would be in a fully legal position to strike. With all that said, whether a strike is legal or illegal, this is all in favor of coming up with a new fair deal that works in the best of interests of the employees and the company. A strike doesn't happen because the union purposely has it out on the flying public, like a passenger personally offended a pilot, for example. But unfortunately, it's the customers that are the losers in the end. That revenue is the bottom line for a company, and job action hits it tremendously. Air Canada pilots are looking for better pay and quality of life provisions. Currently, they're being underpaid compared to their counterparts in the US, like United, Delta, American, and Southwest, and other airlines in the US. That being said, Air Canada's revenue isn't as high as United, for example, but yet still boasts profits year over year in a post-COVID era. I had an old friend that used to work for Jazz as a first officer on the Q400. Now, typically when an opening at mainline Air Canada opens, pilots tend to leave Jazz and fly for mainline. But what he did instead was he opted to fly for United on the 320 out of San Francisco. He still lives in Vancouver, but is still commuting back and forth, yet he's still getting a better pay than most Air Canada pilots at the same level as him. This is because United pays better than Air Canada, and ALPA has brought this to the table on multiple occasions. And you know what, this is nothing new. It's been happening for many years with foreign carriers like Cathay Pacific, Emirates, Qatar Airways, and many others. But that being said, Emirates and Qatar Airways aren't unionized. When Air Canada signed a 10-year deal with ALPA, they did the same with other unions as well, IAM, CUPE, and Unifor. in the last 10 years, too much has changed. COVID, inflation, cost of living, so it makes sense why not only ALPA members are upset, but the other Air Canada employees are too. But at the same time, Air Canada is a business that needs to generate profits to keep it afloat, and still provides a service. ALPA is in the spotlight now, but this is just a start. CUPE, representing flight attendants, their contract expires on March 31st, 2025 next year. IAM, representing station attendants, maintenance engineers, grooming staff, cargo attendants, and stores and parts, their contract ends on April 1st, 2026. So this is just the beginning for Air Canada in terms of potential labor actions into the future. But in the end of the day, it's mostly the employee who defines the image of the airline, and the majority of them are unionized. They are the movers, not the shakers. Thanks for listening about my 2 cents about these recent events. In full honesty, I personally can't share my own deep personal opinions on this, but I'm merely stating all the opinions and feelings from both parties in this manner. It's you, the viewer, that has the final option at the end of the day, so feel free to leave a comment on how you feel about this. And you know what, I'm happy to speak upon this matter, as a lot of people who tend to speak on transportation advocacy tend not to speak on the labor side of things. Yes, it'd be nice to have a big transit or rail expansion in whatever city or region, but labor agreements really define on whether that would happen or not. And not a lot of people in that category on YouTube tend to step into that area, unlike Alan Fisher, for example. So good on you, my man. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next one.